All right, we are on chapter 2 of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. There is a solution, page 17. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. We are average Americans. All sections of this country and many of its occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We are people who normally would not mix. But there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We are like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from a shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us. But that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. Great page. Great page. So in that first paragraph, it's talking about thousands of men and women, thousands, nearly as hopeless as Bill. So they were just right as hopeless as Bill, thousands of people, and nearly all of them have recovered and solved their problem with the drink. It talks about them being average Americans, and I'm sure lots of people are going to comment on this chapter. But when this book was written, it really wasn't representative of we are people that normally do not mix. These were a lot of gentlemen who did come from pretty much the same backgrounds. They had the same color skin. They typically had the same economic standing. So they weren't as diverse as we are today. And then I love the reference to the shipwreck. When the Titanic sunk, for example, everyone became equal in the water. But once all the passengers got to New York, they went their separate ways. And unlike those ship passengers, we stick together because we have this common solution. Lots of hands are up. Dottie.
Hi, everybody. Dottie, alcoholic. In the title of the chapter, there is a solution, one solution, just one. And Kim, I agree. When I was in rehab and I was reading the big book, not knowing what I was reading, and I got to that section where it says we are like passengers of the great liner. That's exactly how I felt. I felt like I was in steerage. I was down at the end. I was done, and then, and after going through rehab, it was like I was now at the captain's table. I had arrived. I was, time to be different. Also on the page, it shares that the tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution, and that's the 12 steps. And I also have written on my page that my sponsor had me write is that every newcomer should hear about the power of the fellowship and the power of the spiritual experience. We won't stay sober without both of those two things. Like the fellowship is strong, but the fellowship alone won't keep us sober. But once we get that have that spiritual experience, which is the main solution, we'll all stay sober. So that's my take.
Thank you, Dottie. Megan M.
Hi, everybody. I'm Megan. I'm an alcoholic. I love this and the next chapter are like my two favorite chapters. And like Dottie said, there is a solution. Right under that, I have only one. And this is the solution. And nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. That stood out to me. once I read that, I was like, wow, okay, like they got something here. And, we were people who normally would not mix, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding, which is indescribably wonderful. Now, there are people from all different backgrounds. It's amazing to me. Like I walk into a room and I'm like, I would not hang out with half of these people. Like when I was out there, like there are so many people. Like, but at the same time, we have this commonality of this suffering that we've all went through, and we do have all different stories of how we've gotten here. But that's our common, thing that we can relate to. That's why like the identify and don't compare was so important in the beginning. And it's just so cool. I think that like all different like politics and all that stuff is like set aside. But yeah, all that stuff is set aside, and it's just like we all come together in this commonality. And the feeling of having shared a common peril is one of the element of powerful Smith that binds us. The identification of our hopelessness and our alcoholism. And we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out, which we can absolutely agree upon, which we can join in broadly in harmonious action. Just so many words in there of how like we come together, and like Dottie said, but this is not the only thing that binds us. There are three different things to me. It's like it's the fellowship. Like we have the three sides of the triangle. Fellowship, recovery, and service. And the recovery is the first 164 pages, and that's and God is in the middle of all of that, and that's why our higher power is so important. But that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Jennifer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Reynolds. I'm a recovered alcoholic, but I'm not cured. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Recovered means that I have recovered from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body that we read about in the doctor's opinion, and some of the stuff in Bill's story. But I'm not cured, which means one drink will set me right back where I was, if not further along in the progression. And that was really important for me to learn. Then down at the bottom, this is one of the first places in my book that I marked up. And so I underlined common solution, and I wrote with specific steps, even though I really didn't know what I was writing. The other thing I wrote was done the same way or differently. And I now know the answer to that question, which is they're done the same way, but people do them differently for whatever reason. And if you, along the lines of half measures avail us nothing, or those of us who have not, rarely have we seen someone who has thoroughly followed our steps failed. So if you do it exactly the way it's spelled out in this book, you'll get the same results. If you do it differently for whatever reason, you can't come back and say it doesn't work, because it does work if you do it the way it's supposed to be done. Although, again, you're not cured, you will just be recovered. So thank you. Thanks for the day.
Thanks, Jennifer. Connie. You got your button?
Yeah.
There you go.
Good?
Yep.
Good morning. Good morning. My name's Connie, and I'm an alcoholic. Thanks for being here this morning. I am working with the third edition, and in the front of it, it was pointed out to me that, let's see, it's like, I think it's called the title page. There, anyways, it says Alcoholics, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And I just love the layout of the book. In the forward, it talks about that with the first 100 who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, and then, but the layout of the book to me too is really important, because medical information is what helped me get in the doors of AA, helped me physically go, oh, okay, I understand I have to get something. I didn't understand all the emotional, mental, spiritual aspects of it, but physically got me. And so the doctor's opinion was interesting to me because it gave me the medical stuff. And then it made it personal with this Bill story and his desperation and his struggles. And I could connect. I could possibly see where I could connect. And this is, of course, working with the sponsor, side by side. I could connect my alcoholism with Bill's story and stuff and see. And then I'm hopeful because he has a solution. And then this is for me. There's a solution is where the invite is that we. It's inviting me in. It's like, hey, we understand. And the first word is we, and that we've all recovered, and it was a problem, and we, and then it gets to be our joy, as we, and it's just the invite, and then it's us, then I see the word us, every one of us, we have a way out, and it just gives me that, like, hey, you're not alone. And for me, that was important to make me want to read more of this book. And it tells me that this book has the news of how we also, we're in this boat of life together. And we understand where you are now because we have been there. And we're telling you that there's a solution. And the way to that solution is information that carries this book and our experience. And I love that invitation to keep me, because that kept me wanting more, to read about the book. But I needed somebody to help me see the connection with Bill and the personal story and then the medical aspect. And then this gets to be the place where I can become human, like that. And then, of course, there's more process for me. So anyways, thanks for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a little note on the word we, right? Like if you think of the story of the passengers, it's we as a collective. The captain is equal to the servants, the first class is equal to the steerage, and it's a we. So it was pointed out to me when sponsoring, we don't want to give directions as a you. So you need to do the steps. You need to work the program. You need to pray. You need to do this. It's we. We all do it together. We are all in this together. So keeping that verbiage is very important to use we. And another thing is on the word recovered. Recovered is in the big book 23 times. Recover is in the big book 28 times. And recovering is only in 2 times. So there's a little hierarchy on the words. Erin. You're
Hi,
good?
Kim. Yes, there was actually what you guys were just talking about stuck out for me. We are like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck. The we part is what really got me, because I love the second step, because it brought me to the higher power, came to believe. And that's the part, I go from this, and I go from a pamphlet, came to believe that the higher power could restore me to my sanity, and it took me the longest time to get the I out of my wording. And it's still taking me forever to get the I out of my wording and get the we into my vocabulary, and knowing that my higher power is what keeps me sober in this program, and what keeps me my boat steering in the right direction every day. And I totally agree with what one of the young ladies said. I would have never hung around with most of the people that I hang around with now, drinking, that I do sober. I'm just so grateful to be an alcoholic. I can say I'm so grateful now, because I've met some of the most wonderful people in the world, especially through these Zoom meetings, that I never would have met being the drunk that I was. And I can say today that I'm no longer a drunk. I'm a recovering alcoholic. But instead of trying to master this program like I've been trying to do, it's a forever learning program, and it's a forever journey that I'm so happy that I'm going to stay on until the day I die, and continuously learn. And it's a spiritual program that I'm forever going to stay spiritually connected with God. And so this is my first time in this meeting with you ladies, and I have to say it's a true pleasure and an honor So thank you so much for letting me be connected with you ladies today. It was a true pleasure, and you ladies stay blessed. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Erin. Melissa. Oh, there we go.
It's funny because what it says in the book about how these are people that wouldn't normally mix, I actually had almost the exact opposite experience, but in a really cool way, because I only have 46 days, so I was brand new to the program when the pandemic started, and I didn't have a sponsor yet, and I put a note in the chat of the nighttime meetings, and a few people contacted me, but the one who I ended up choosing for a sponsor has the same first name as me, and we're both librarians. And like, what are the chances of two librarians hooking up in a Zoom meeting? Me in BC and her in California. I just thought that was super cool. But in other ways, I feel like I do have more in common with people in our meetings, because in my life, I don't have any friends who are alcoholics, or if they are, I don't know about it. And when I told them, when I started telling people that I had a problem, like, there's so much denial in my friends and family, like they just don't believe it. But it's because I was able to keep it a secret. And I had like a really painful existence in the privacy of my home, right? So anyways, just wanted to share that. Thank you, and thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Melissa. Teresa M. Whoopsies.
Hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The biggest thing that jumped out at me was the down on the second paragraph, the last couple sentences, the feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element of this powerful cement that binds us. And then the next sentence says, that itself would never have held us together, as we are now joined. So it's like cement, and we're joined. It's a fellowship where God is present, and God is in each one of us. And that's what binds us and keeps us together and keeps us strong. Because I tried for over a year to get sober by myself, and I could not do it until I walked into the rooms over 3 years ago. And that's when I started hearing God talk to me in the rooms. And whenever, like even this meeting, I feel God talking to me through different people. And so I found that those two sentences just were so powerful to me. Thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you. Marianne.
Hi, friends. I am an alcoholic. My name's Marianne. Good to see you all again. I find just the name of this chapter so comforting. I was in such a mess and so desperate when I got here and when I first got my hands on this book, that it was the first chapter I read. And when I saw today people that would not normally mix, 2 months ago, I didn't know over 100 ladies reading line by line a big book and enjoying every minute of it. I mean, I don't beg the question anymore, is it odd or is it God? Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is the biggest stepsisters group I've ever had. All right, let me just scan for some hands up in case anybody's physically raising their hand. Looks like we're good. All right, we'll move on to page 18. An illness of this sort, and we have come to believe it an illness, involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him and no one is angry or hurt, but not so with the alcoholic illness, for with it there goes annihilation of all things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents, Anyone can increase the list. We hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are or who may be affected. There are many. Highly competent psychiatrists who have dealt with us have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. Strangely enough, wives, parents, and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist and the doctor. But the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with the facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. That the man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he is talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful, that there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. I love that paragraph, but there's so much on that page. Really quickly, what I want to point out is that part at the beginning when it talks about that this is an illness, and it's an illness different than that, say, of someone who has cancer. You know, with it, we come with a lot of wreckage. Like, we destroy everything. Like that song, Miley Cyrus, I came in like a wrecking ball. Like, that's my life. But I always like to kind of compare to the cancer patient that, you know, maybe there's the cancer patient that gets told he's got stage 4 cancer. And when he does, he's like, well, fuck it, I'm going to die anyways. And so he goes out, he gambles away all his money, he starts partying hard, he leaves his wife, he quits his job because he's going to live it up because he's on his last legs. I think that we're more like that if you relate to it. I love that it has this paragraph in italics, which means it's very, very important. That the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, this one right here, and is properly armed with the facts about himself, the facts being the nature of our illness, you know, the malady of the mind and the allergy of the body, is able to win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Now, the boys like to be like, I am armed with the facts about myself. I'm like, if someone said that to me, I would have no idea what they were talking about. But myself, Kim, I can win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in about 10 or 15 minutes by listening to what they say and relating it to my personal experience. I have developed that skill in that I listen intently and I find pieces of my story that I can relate to them, and I can win the confidence of an alcoholic in 15 minutes. I can. And the part down here that says no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. You know, there's some guys up here in Vancouver that will make their sponsees wash their car before they'll take them through the steps, or that 90 meetings in 90 days before I'll even consider taking you through the steps. People die. People are dying. 90 days is too long. Like, there is no price to pay, no axe to grind. If you want this solution, I'm going to give it to you. Ebby gave it to Bill in 2 hours while Bill was drunk. Then he went to detox, and then he worked the steps. You just because someone's drunk, I don't say, oh, go get sober and call me in 5 days, or go to 5 meetings and then call me, or call me every day for 3 days and go to this meeting, or meet me at the meeting. If they don't have a car, they don't have a bus pass, pick them up. These people are not well. Like yeah, people say, oh, well, what would you do for your alcohol? It's like, let's help them out. Let's give them a hand. Their heads are down at their feet and they're broken. Let's be kind, because let's be honest, if someone told me to get to a meeting or go get booze, I'd go get booze. So that's my little statement on that. Went off on a little rant. Annette.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for taking the meeting, and hello, everyone. This really, hits home with me because of being so prideful and not knowing that I had an illness. Like, it was just like, to know that other people had this allergy was very helpful for me, and not to have the stigma about it, because I'm sure when this was because I myself had a hard time to realize that I was an alcoholic, because I always pictured what my family would say, like the bum on the street, or oh, you're not, and they would say the same, you're not alcoholic, you're not, but they don't know the whole truth. Like someone had shared. That's why you have to be honest with your own self, and the and like you were saying about the person who has one day can help the person who just came in. It's that, like, I was just here, just hold on, you can do it. And physically we come better, and it's just, I didn't feel like I belonged at first. And I remember, like, I didn't have to have a paper signed. And just to fit in, I made my own paper. It's just to keep track of my meetings, like the 90-90, like they say. And just that whole understanding and compassion and empathy that we can give, because we walked in these shoes. So that's very powerful. And it says the word deportment, I had to find out what that meant, and it's the way that we conduct ourselves. Like, it's not like we're better than, it's like just an understanding, like the we thing, like we can do this, like do as I do, not as I say, type of a thing, like lead by example, because you might be the only big book somebody might first see. Like you said, people are dying out there. They don't understand because they're in the grips. Like I didn't understand myself. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. And armed with the facts, it stresses the importance of the person bringing the solution having had done a thorough personal inventory and a thorough 5, because then there's no shame associated to anything in your past. So for me, I'm an open book. Anything about my past I'll discuss with anybody, because it's the way I'm going to be able to get that person's confidence and get them to believe me. Because if you saw me, you wouldn't know I used to have a problem. Right? So if we don't present, they'd be like, oh, you don't know what I'm feeling like. It's like, yeah, I do. Regina. Did I pronounce that right?
Regina. Hi, I'm Regina. I'm an alcoholic. This has been great. I love going through the steps with you ladies. What I have in my book, underlined and asterisks, and have asterisks all around, is the last few lines of the first paragraph. It engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers. This tells me that this is a family illness. Mm-hmm. And I also have here that these lines, it brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment. This is the opposite of the promises. And, as you go further down the page, the paragraph that starts highly competent psychiatrist, this just tells me that my ego does not want to be deflated. But going further down, like everyone has stated, it's really important for the person that is going to be talking to somebody that has a problem to make sure that they've done the steps, and that they understand what alcoholism is, and that they can help that individual. It also talks about, until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. This is obviously a 12-step call. So this information on this page is really important for me, and when I go through this with sponsees, I try to point these things out. That there's also, Al-Anon is a great program for the family if there's other people that are affected by the alcoholic, and that not and not to shy away from it. I try to encourage people that have family members that don't get this to try Al-Anon. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that leads to that paragraph there that says that we hope this will inform and comfort those who are or may be affected. Like we said earlier, this book is for anyone. The wife could read this, so she better understands the alcoholic as well. Dottie,
alcoholic. When I told my family I was going to rehab, they didn't understand because they never saw me drink alcoholically around them. I was that social drinker around my family, so they really never saw the true me. So yeah, it was just like, so they're like, they couldn't understand, and it's just it was hard to explain until after I came back from rehab and I went to some meetings. But the section in italic, which I have underlined, is an identification that, as Kim was sharing, like I have to be totally honest and open with my past experience so I can help another alcoholic. because I did have a sponsees one day say to me, well, you just don't understand what I'm going through because you never went through it. And I was like, I did. So I had to like reshare my story with her, because when we first started working with each other, she wasn't grasping it because she was still, her head was still full of alcohol. um but because I was able to re-explain all the crap that I went through before becoming alcoholically drinking, um in my past, then she finally was able to understand, open up and talk to me, because if they don't feel comfortable, they're, the active alcoholic or the newcomer isn't going to open up if they don't identify with anything you're going through. And then that last paragraph, it just, I take it as a characteristics of what a sponsor is,
Mhm.
I have to be able to, be down to earth and just, help another alcoholic. And, and if I can't be down to earth and, and not come at them with this holier than thou attitude, um, I won't be any help to anybody, never mind myself. So yeah, so that's what I get off of this page. It's a good page. It's a great page for identifying yourself and how you can help another alcoholic.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dottie. Yvonne. Oh, you should have a button there. Yeah, there you
I'm
go.
Yvonne. I'm an alcoholic. Just this page, I've read this, and again, I say it just doesn't. I don't know. It takes a whole new meaning when we're going through it like this. A couple things. One, this highly competent psychiatrist who have dealt with us, blah blah blah. The rest of that, I just this time found that kind of funny, being that they don't. I mean, they don't understand. I was going to a therapist, and actually I do, and I was explaining to her some of the stuff, and she ended up getting a big book and reading these kind of reading it. But in the way we lie, I was never truthful on how much I drank, and I wasn't going to be. I didn't want to embarrass myself and feel the shame. The strangely enough, wives, parents, and intimate friends, I didn't have anybody tell me, Yvonne, I think you have a drinking problem. Because I drank with my husband, I drank with my two older daughters, and my son-in-law, and all of that. And so when I came into the rooms, I had they like almost pushed. I felt like an outsider, and I had, like I said in the chat, I had to battle with my husband to get to the meetings I did go to. So that was a little bit different for me. And where then it goes down to the next paragraph, where it is easier to talk to somebody about it that does understand. If you've never been there, you don't understand. And that it just makes a total difference. And that for me, I didn't feel like an outsider in the rooms. I just felt like I fit in there. And the Al-Anon. I've been to Al-Anon, and my mom and all of that. But anyway, can you or somebody take a moment and explain? I know there's some questions to newcomers about counting the words in the books, the recovery. And then I know also somebody has said one time about counting the must words in the book. Can you explain what the significance of that is? Thanks.
Sure. And just speaking to the talking about the psychiatrists and how they're highly competent psychiatrists, my sponsor's hilarious, and she's very blunt, and she says it's like there's teenage boys, and they're twin teenage boys, and they wanted to learn about sex. And one took out a book and he studied every book about sex, and the other one got a girlfriend. Who are you going to ask for advice? That's like the alcoholic. Are you going to ask someone who read a book about drinking, or are you going to ask someone who's actually drank? I'm going to ask someone who's drank. So, yeah, she's got the funniest analogies. I'll share them as we go. Charlene.
Hi, Charlene, alcoholic. So for me, the part about the cancer really stood out to me. I've heard that before. I didn't really know where it came from, but obviously it came from this book. And I'm sick, like I knew that I was sick the moment the first time I decided to get sober was because I couldn't walk to the bathroom because I had so much water retention from drinking. I was so hungover from the night before that I was like, oh, I think I need help because I can't walk. I thought that was my rock bottom, but it wasn't because I didn't seek out the proper solution. I didn't go, to AA. I did go to AA and I thought, to hell with this. This is not for me, the very first time. And then I relapsed 3 more times before, my sickness really got a hold of me. And I knew that I had no choice but to get help. I knew that there was something available to me, but I just didn't know what it was. And I just wanted to point out that I think a lot more people are affected by this disease nowadays. So like when I went to work and I said, "Look, I'm sick. I'm an alcoholic. I can't stop. I need help, and I'm gonna, seek out rehabilitation through rehab and these sorts of things." They understood. They didn't, shake their heads and say, what's wrong with you? They said, yeah, we understand. You have a job waiting for you when you came back. And for me, that was the pinnacle moment where I thought, oh my God, like I need to do this and I need to do this every day. And my medicine is now this program. It works if you work it. And so, hearing this again, like just being reiterated to me through this story, there is a solution. Period. The end. There is a solution. So I make the choice to get my medicine every day. And when I decide that I don't want my medicine anymore, that's when I'm gonna go get sick again. So I just thought that was really profound, and I just absolutely love hearing this stuff. I woke up this morning with just in my heart to write about the step one, powerlessness and unmanageability. And I wrote this like huge thing on it, and it just someone said, "Oh, you look happy today," and I feel happy because I'm putting my heart into this program, and it helps me be a good mom. It helps me be a good daughter. It helps me do all these things because I am getting my medicine for my sickness. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Emily. There you go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emily, and I'm an alcoholic. So prior to coming to AA, I had heard that, alcoholism was considered a disease. And, it took me a very long time to get here, and I had a lot of contempt prior to investigation. And so, now that I've been here a little over 2 years, I guess, it's really, these meetings, the big book meetings, have been, so eye-opening to me, because even though I've remained sober, it's just been mind-blowing. So I just wanted to express my gratitude because this has really opened my eyes, so thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. Connie. There you go.
Good morning. Hi. Connie, alcoholic. For me personally, this page speaks to compassion. It's so much compassion. It almost makes me cry. I'm going to try not to, but it reminds me that it's an illness because when people and friends go out in the program, it's so shaking. It shakes you to your core. You hope they get back. You wonder, will I go out after? All those things. People outside of the program that are having problems with drinking, that invite and stuff. And this helps me. So there's emotions involved with all that, that worry and stuff, underlying fears. But to remember again that this is an illness. I love the wording. It engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers. It doesn't just affect people. It just doesn't bother them. It engulfs people, in ways that we don't even see. And we don't see that. And they just, being a part of them in our alcoholism and we touch them and the effect of that, whether it's our character, whether it's our actions, our behaviors, all that stuff affects them. And how engulfing it is. And it brings me peace to say, oh, this is an illness, because it's just like it says, we don't have that compassion like, oh, it's cancer, it's diabetes, oh my gosh, their body. We say, oh my God, why the fuck did they drink again? Why did they go out? Like that. Will they get back? And this, it's like realizing that, engulfing it. And I have to breathe in life. And that reminds me that for me, I couldn't tell the truth when it says, competent for psychiatry. I couldn't tell the truth when I go to the doctor. They say, yeah, you drink, yeah, blah, 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 a little bit. I'd always deny it, couldn't. So I remember that when people are in their cups, they're not capable of knowing the truth. And I know that also that I have to just be present. It's so life-giving to me to be present and participate in this program, because that might be the attraction that somebody else is, to say, what are you doing? What gives you this? And I can say, the program, this is what I learned. This is the part of it. But it just helps me with my compassion, because even in dealing with resentments, and the inventory process, like I see the inventory here, it brings misunderstanding, my ideas. It brings fierce resentment, my emotions, financial insecurity. Everybody deals with insecurity. And this is what disgusted friends and employers, that's relationships, and I just love how it goes back to the inventory process. This is the inventory process. Others do this too, but when you're an alcoholic, we engulf others who suffer, and we don't have to do that. We can breathe that thing, even in sobriety. I love it that a little bit further, when people are doing the 8th step, it's like, hey, he comes out of the tornado, ain't it grand? It's like we think everything's great, and we're like fucking doing the 8th step, and it's like, oh my God, humbling. And so again, it's this humility that it's not humiliation now. It's this humility that I don't know. I just accept this gift, and it's a treasure, and I have to be compassionate to myself and to others, because it is an illness, and it's an unseen illness sometimes, and so that reaching out to each other to experience that helps bring me life. So anyways, thanks for being here. Thank you. Mute.
Thank you. We'll do one more on this page, and then we'll move on to the next page. Let's go with Vanessa.
I'm Vanessa. I'm an alcoholic. I just where it says if a person has cancer, or someone else mentioned diabetes or any other illness, it amazes me that if this was any illness besides alcoholism, this text would be obsolete. So much has changed and so much has evolved with treatments since then, and nothing has really changed with alcoholism. In 2017, I had sought help through psychiatry first too, not being completely honest either, hoping for some sort of solution from a doctor that was an immediate cure to what was going on with me. And I was floored when 5 days later, after being in this ward, he came and referred me to 12-step meetings. And just how amazing it is that this hasn't changed in 80 years since this was written, that even the psychiatrists themselves, they know that this is the solution. So thanks.
Thank you. All right, just to be time cautious, we're going to keep going on page 19. None of us makes a sole vocation of this work, nor do we think its effectiveness would be increased if we did. Excuse me. We feel that elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all their time to this work. If we keep on the way we are going, there is little doubt that much good will result, but the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. Many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given us? We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume, setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall bring to task our combined experience and knowledge. This should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with a drinking problem. Of necessity, there will have to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware that these matters are, from their very nature, controversial. Nothing would please us so much as to write a book which would contain no basis for contention or argument. We shall do our utmost to achieve that ideal. Most of us sense that a real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions are attitudes which make us more useful to others. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. Such a good page. So starting at the top where it talks about none of us should make a sole vocation of this work. A vocation, of course, is like a job. I have met a lot of gentlemen who work in treatment centers, and they've discussed how they're constantly thinking that that's good enough to keep their recovery, and they relapse or they go back out, and it's because they're not doing this in their spare time. So I urge you, if you are doing this as a vocation, to make sure you're also doing it for free, for your own self, because I've seen so many people fail in that regard. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we are going to describe. Well, I am one of those few fortunate people who is so situated that I can give nearly all my time to this work. And it only came to be that way by spending my spare time doing this. I know lots of people who say, oh, I can only sponsor Saturday mornings, or you can only call me Tuesdays and Thursdays because the other time my kids have sports or this or that. I made myself available absolutely any time. And as such, God rewarded me with this new life where I'm situated where I can work my recovery before I work my business. And I'm able to give myself 15, 16 hours a day to this program. And that's how I've gotten this connection with God, is I've been fortunate enough. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given with us? Well, back in 1939, the best way to do it was through a book and some mail, and it took a long time. I live in 2020, and now the best way for me is to have this book and have a Zoom and have 108 people listening to me carry this message, because I live in a city where thousands and thousands of people are dying. Vancouver has a very, I'm sure it's everywhere, it's people are dying every day from alcoholism and addiction, and we have the solution. And I'm loud, I'm proud. I use my social media in a discreet way, keeping with our traditions, because I can carry the message in a louder way. I'm sure Bill would have utilized this technology if he had it in 1939, because he wanted to get this message out. And then at the bottom there, when it says we have a real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints, and a respect for their opinions and attitudes, we are all in this together. We all are wanting the same thing. We all want to help other alcoholics. We all want to respect the traditions, and yet it causes a lot of infighting. I don't have to be friends with everybody, but I can respect people, and the fact that we are trying to carry this message. Grace, sorry I didn't get to you the last page.
Oh, that's fine. I just have two things. One is to comment on what you said in the beginning of this page, when you started to share and you talked about, full-time vocation, and you talked about people that work in the field. And I worked in recovery for quite a number of years. And one of the things I saw then, and I see it now with people that are in the rooms that work in recovery, is that over a period of time, very many of them start to think that using the time that they work with people in recovery programs is sufficient, and that they don't need to make meetings. And there's nothing that could be further from the truth on that, because they are the ones, as you mentioned, will relapse. I've worked with them. They share unprofessionally with their clients things that they should be sharing at a meeting or with their sponsors, and it doesn't work. And the second thing was, when we talk about there is a solution, yes, but after we hear a lot of people talking today, about their journeys. The journeys are so different. And sometimes we're in such a fog in the beginning that if we can work on the first step for that first 90 days, we are lucky if we can do it and feel successful that we've gone that far. Some take much longer to be able to progress further in the steps. And your sponsor will guide you there. We never can avoid doing steps, but the timing in which we begin to go through the process further beyond that first 3 steps. I am in program a long time, and I remember when I first came in, treatment centers were not very many of them. Okay, they were rare. I wouldn't have even known where any of them were. So when we came in, we had to just listen to what the sponsor told us a day at a time. And for me, walking into that room and just knowing there was somebody in that room that obviously was there for the same reason I was, is what made me comfortable in the beginning, because nobody in my family or in my social circles would have ever confronted me on it. As I read this, there's so many things I think of, told to just, lighten up, pick something different to drink. They didn't understand it. But, it all takes time. But yes, there is a solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Charlene.
Yeah, hi, Charlene, alcoholic. For me, this brings up by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. I had messaged a friend of mine who's a police officer in London, Ontario, and he had just gone back to work after 4 weeks of being off, and he said there's a relapse or a death from addiction every 10 minutes. He said he gets a call, and it shouldn't blow my mind, but it did blow my mind. And I've lost 3 friends to this disease within the last 2 years, and it's what I can do to work my program and to help other people is just continue to make those suggestions when people approach me, or when I disclose even that I am an alcoholic. I can give them the opportunity to come to AA meetings, and how then shall we present that which has been so freely given, just like that, just suggesting and being confident in my recovery. I am a recovering alcoholic. I have to be confident in that so that I can help others not die, basically, is what it is. And that has now, through these Zoom meetings and through this big book, it's become my mission. It's, this is my new way of life, another new way of life. Before I was kind of just going through the motions. And you know what that does for me? It makes me want to go out and drink. That's what it does for me. So I'm like, I have to have a mission. I have to have a plan. Man, these are such good pages. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Charlene. Megan.
Hi, everybody. Megan, alcoholic. And what really stood out to me? I love how they have a little tiny blurb of step 12 in here. So when I'm going through it with the sponsee, this just reminds me even more of the patience and tolerance that I have to have for other people's shortcomings and viewpoints. And that's one thing. The only way I gained that was by going through the steps, because I was intolerant of everything when I first came in. I was angry. I was extremely angry. I was pissed because I lost my love, and that was alcohol. And I couldn't go back. I knew I couldn't go back to it. And that's when I had to get the 1 day at a time part in. But, the real tolerance of other people's shortcomings. If people piss me off today in the rooms, that's what I think of. I'm like, that's some of their character defects that they have, which I also remember, I'm sure I have plenty of character defects that a lot of other people don't like. So it's it's being patient and tolerant and understanding of people. And that keeps me from building resentments. That's one of the main things. It makes me useful to others by understanding them and thinking that maybe they're going through something right now. Constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. That's all I'm here for. That I'm not here to, preach. I'm not here to, do anything else, but try to help another person, because I've been selfish for long enough. I've definitely thought of myself for many years, and I've had plenty of time doing that, and I don't need to do that anymore. And I realized that by going outside of myself and helping somebody else, it also does help me. and it helps me be of use to God, and that's what's the most important to me right now, is how I can be of use to my higher power and how I can help others. So really love that that last paragraph there. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much. Allison. Oh, hang on. There we go. Allison? Did you want to share? Unmute. Regina?
Hi, everyone. I'm Regina. I'm an alcoholic. One of the things that stood out for me in the last paragraph, where it says, of necessity, there will have to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware that these matters are, from their very nature, controversial. You know, I was talking with a sponsor once about the book and the importance of taking people through the book. And, one of the things we talked about was, as a sponsor, it's what I do is I take people through the book so that they can find their higher power. I'm not a social worker. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor, but I can, and I, as a sponsor, need to know where my boundaries are, and I can make suggestions to say, okay, what you're talking about is beyond what I can help you with, but here, why don't you talk to this person? They might be able to help you find somebody to help you deal with that. Because what she said to me was, there's a lot of sick people in AA, and that, you need to be very careful about, who you talk to and what and what suggestions you're getting. One of the things she said, that if you have somebody in AA that's telling you not to take medication, if you've been on medication, don't listen to that person, go to a doctor. So this to me talks a lot about finding outside help, and that it's okay. And what my experience was I didn't go to therapy before I was in AA. I learned about therapists when I came to AA. And even when it was suggested to me, I didn't go to see a therapist until I was in so much pain that my sponsor basically said to me, I can't help you with this. You need to get extra help. And thank God she did that, and she was able to direct me to the right person. And I think the combination of that, of that guidance has helped me get to the place where I am today. And I know when I'm going through this work with somebody, if there's been trauma in somebody's life that is kicked up in a fourth step, or that's kicked up in anything that we're discussing, I know where my boundary is, and I know that I can confidently say, I can't help you with that. You might want to talk to a therapist about that, and be loving about it, and give her the direction and the guidance that she needs to get there, but definitely not take it on myself. So thank you.
Right, because like the role of the sponsor is not a life coach or an advice giver. It's I'm a spiritual guide to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, I can give you my experience with this situation, but I am not an advice giver. My advice got me in this chair sitting here in front of you. So I can help you to relate it to the 12 steps. That's about it. Jackie.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Hi everyone. Good to be here. Sorry I was late. I was on the wrong Zoom page, but when it talks about our vocation or our job, my career has been in child and family services, and prior to that, it was always in some form of service to others. And so I was that person. I got sober. I got clean and dry in 1984 when I put my feet under the table for the first time. I had been drinking since I was 9. And so, it was a rough go, but I did my program, and my program consisted of exactly that, of, my job, throwing myself into my job, overtime, full-time, and also throwing myself into church. And I never realized until after I relapsed and came back that the entire time I was white knuckling it, because that was all I just kept saying, look, I'm doing service work. Look, I'm doing service work. And I'm working the program. And a lot of my clients, I have to refer them to AA. I've rationalized that for a long time. And it almost took me to my end. Well, it took me to my end. I just didn't get to jump off. And I'm glad that I didn't, because some someone came along and showed me what the program was, and I finally had a heart to hear. You know, I can have ears to hear, but I need a heart to hear, and my heart was finally open, and I saw that I was being pompous and thinking, you know, and pious, and like, look what I do in my job. You know, I don't need your program, and boy, was I so wrong. And so putting myself 100% and claiming, you know, somebody said earlier talking about, you know, making it my job, that can't be my recovery. It can't, and I can't schedule my recovery around my job. I have to make my recovery first, or I'm not going to make it. And more importantly, you know, my sponsees, I want them to. Sometimes I feel like I'm just phoning it in with them. And listening to you guys today, I'm thinking it's because I'm not at those moments. I need to look at my life when I see things in them that I want to point out. I also need to look at my life, because when I take inventory on their shelves, it's usually because I own the same stuff in my store. You know, I don't know. I could go on. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We got Allison back. I think we figured it out. Allison, do you got a box on your?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. There you go.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say, I'm Allison, alcoholic. The illness was a really, really big deal for me, because to me it felt like an excuse. Oh, I'm sick. I have a disease, you know. And I just wanted to quickly say that I really hadn't accepted it was an illness. I preferred to just beat myself up mercilessly. Because, like, come on, just stop drinking. Isn't that what we're all sort of somehow raised to believe? And I actually canceled a vacation in February and used a doctor's note that said I had to cancel the vacation due to alcoholism. And I thought, well, these people are going to laugh in my face. What kind of an excuse is that? And in fact, it is recognized as an illness. And I got my money back, which is not my point. My point is I really, really didn't take it seriously as the illness that it really is, the disease that it really is. So I try to have compassion because I'm so much better at just saying, well, you're just a fuck up and get it together. But it is an illness, and it's interesting. At least it's recognized now, and that's something. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Marianne, close us out. Oh.
Go.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi. Thank God they wrote this program of action down, or I don't think we'd be sitting here today. Because I know that my distorted and lacking in proportion thinking at times gets me a little crazy. But I can always go back to the book and find clear-cut directions to help me out of that thinking. So thank God that happened. Is it odd or is it God?
Thank you. And our last hand up, iPhone.
Oh, Peter's an alcoholic. Oh, hello. I want to thank all of you women. This has been really wonderful. I'm here from Vermont, and a new sponsor, I got a new sponsor in the fall. She said, you have to go on this site. There's a program up in, I believe it's Alberta, out in that way. But anyways, I do love Canada. I live up by the Canadian border here in Vermont. And I've learned, you know, it's just been so nice to listen to the voices of women and their experience. You know, when I came around, I had no idea it was the first drink that got me drunk. You know, it was just, I didn't know a lot. Obviously, I didn't know who I was either, but you couldn't have told me that. And you couldn't have told me I was afraid of anything. Until I put down the drink, I was afraid of everything. You know, self-acceptance didn't come easy. And there still are moments today when I struggle with things that I cannot change. But I do recognize that if I hang on, the tighter I hang on, the more difficult it is. And and I've heard a lot of things I really could identify with, and you know, some of the treatment and people that work in treatment, and you know, I've had some experiences that were not all that wonderful, but I did learn through that. You know, I'm able to turn things around and find the silver lining in everything, and even through, you know, the hardships that the world is experiencing today, there's a silver lining, and this is one of them. And I just am really grateful to have the opportunity to hear the feedback with your experience. And I've been around for a while. I've done a little bit of service work, and I'm finding that I'm desiring to do more service work, and it's kind of a nice place for me to be. And I just, you know, want to give it away. And of course, we all know that, you know, there are many people who need Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's the people who want recovery, the people who want to get sober, that are really the focus for us today. And thank you for the meeting. Bye. Yep.
Thank you so much. All right, ladies, that's the end of our study for today. We will continue next day.